by the way. Hi, okay, welcome. So this is our distant figures and watercolor class. And thank you for coming, so formal. So this is what we're gonna do today. We're gonna have fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And we're going to learn how to put figures, abstracted figures, into your watercolor paintings. So this is just some practice figures, but maybe you'll end up just liking to paint people like this, because I really do too. I like to paint little crowd scenes now. Especially through the pandemic, I was painting a series that I called Gather, and it was just about people actually being with each other. It was so nice. Yeah, throughout the pandemic, there were all sorts of art prompts and contests and stuff about that. So I was doing that. And that's what got me thinking about how to make abstracted figures in watercolor. So, so I've kind of come up with a way to sort of create, not to try to draw the figures, but to almost do stylized figures. So we're going to start off with that. We're going to start off with like an easy way to do stylized figures. So basically what we're doing is we're creating symbols of people rather than portraits of people. And it's very easy. We're just going to use shapes to do it. So, and the idea is to sort of suggest the anatomy rather than try to draw a person. Because usually when figures are in the distance or when they're not the focus of our painting, they don't need a lot of detail. In fact, having too much detail can distract from the rest of the painting. So a lot of the time we just want to add figures to a painting either for function, like we want to show what the space that they're in is used for, or we want to show habitation, like civilization. So for example, if you're drawing a park or painting a park, I just gave this course in person and we had several urban sketchers. So if I say draw, that's why, because we had several like pen and ink artists in the room. But anyway, let's say you're painting a park, if you don't put in some signs of civilization, it might not look like a park. It might look like a forest. But if you just add a couple figures, a bench or a signpost, things like that, then all of a sudden it's an actual park. And the viewer can tell that very easily without you having to create like a story of people or a story about whatever the figures are doing in the park. So a lot of the time we use figures for just to show that there's civilization in the place or habitation going on. And then another reason that we can add figures to a painting is to show scale. So if you want to show, like, for example, you have a building. If you have a small figure, the building will seem very, very large and you'll get a better idea of the scale. Just like having a tree next to it can help with that. If you show a bigger figure in proportion to the building, then the building obviously is going to seem proportionally smaller. So a lot of the time just putting that little figure in there can show, it's especially with grand buildings, like for example, a really tall building or a building in Europe where they're sort of bigger scale, it can really help you get a sense of the grandeur of that, whether it's a temple or a bank building or whatever it is. So those are the reasons why we do it a lot of the time. So we're going to start off with symbols of figures, and I'll show you how to do 3 different kinds. And so we'll have fun painting, and you can use whatever colors you want. You just need water, paint, paper, and a brush or 2. And then what we'll do is we'll practice making these shapes, and then we'll do more specific figures. So we'll do things like figures at the beach or figures from behind. So we'll have some more practice, and I have photos of people that I've grabbed off the web, for example, and I'll show those and we'll paint those. And then lastly, what we'll do is we'll talk about putting figures into a scene, how to really add them into a scene. So we'll just practice making the figures first, and then we'll be putting them into scenes later. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen as I do. Here we go. Okay, so first we're just going to make these shapes, and I have 3 different shapes that I like to make, and there are carrots, diamonds, and perfume bottles. Okay, don't laugh, but it works. Okay, so these guys are more diamonds. So I'm going to show you the carrots, and what you just want to do is you can use any color. I like to use, when I'm doing these, either a pointed filbert, a round brush, or like a mop brush, like a Chinese brush, okay? But I mean, honestly, you can use almost any brush to do this. And the size of the brush depends on, you know, how big you're painting and how big your figures are gonna be. So you might wanna play around with doing them with different brushes today and see what you find easiest. I'm gonna just start off with the bigger brush because it'll show up better. You know, it's just easier to see. So what you're gonna wanna do is mix up like a nice juicy puddle of a color, any color. I'm gonna use blue because I have a lot of it in my palette and it shows up really nicely. So while I mix this up, I want to talk about proportion. Okay, so while we're mixing up our color. So most artists they're off. They start off wrong when they try to put figures in their paintings. And they make them too short and they make the head too big. Okay. And so the figures can appear to look squatty or they just look wrong. They don't like sort of blend. You just sort of want your eye to see the figure, but not really land on it too much, you know, when you're doing distant figures in watercolor. So remember that I'm just going to show you, like the human male figure is about 8 heads tall. So that's 4. Now double that. So this is really what your figure is going to look like. Okay. So, and usually I like the head to touch the shoulders because look at me in the little box. I mean, there's very little neck showing, right? So there isn't, what you don't have is, and you don't want to do is that. You don't want like an ET figure, right? And in fact, when people are walking, a lot of the time they're doing this. And so a lot of the time, their head really goes like down into their shoulders. And if they're hunched over, you're even going to see less head. Okay. So this is correct. This is okay. Somewhere in between this would be great. Right? It's just, this is a no here. Okay. So now that we've just talked a little bit about proportion, let's talk about how to do the carrot. Okay, so when I do the carrot, I'm going to start just making a carrot shape. So I'm going to start with the shoulders. Okay, shoulders can go straight across or they can slope down and they generally don't go up, right? Like when you see a figure in a landscape, if they're doing this, it's going to be a very specific figure. So what you want to do is either straight across or sloped, and then just bring that shape down and taper it down. So you guys can go ahead and do this. And then add a little head, just almost stamp it with your brush. And you have a striding figure all of a sudden. So why a carrot? Well, in Southern California, especially, people aren't wearing like big bulky jackets. So generally you're gonna see the body, you know, the silhouette of the body more rather than like a big puffer. So I like the big jacket if I'm trying to show like maybe it's an evening event or if it's in a colder climate where people might be wearing more. So we'll do those in a little bit. But you want to be able to show off the shape of the body. And then the taper is because you generally just don't see the legs standing like this. I mean, sometimes people are standing with their legs akimbo or their arms akimbo, but quite often you just want like a simple figure walking. And when people are walking, their legs are one in front of the other, right? That's very often. So this is a great symbol for a striding person. Okay, while the color is still wet, go ahead and drop in another color. So while it's still wet, you can drop in another color. And I like to use red or orange in the head because quite often I'm doing a sunny painting and the figures are backlit. And so what you end up seeing, it looks like skin tone doesn't look like skin tone. It just takes on a dark reddish hue or even a brownish hue. It depends on the color of the person's skin tone to start with. But quite often that's what it looks like. And a lot of artists will use this construct. So some of my favorite artists, for example, they use this construct for drawing people, okay? So, and then if you want, you can always add color in to differentiate the bottom half. So the pants, basically trousers, from the top half. And by doing this way, you can really have fun with colors. Go ahead and try another one. So remember, we're just making carrots right now. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. You can always change up the colors. Just do it while it's still wet. You guys know the rules, right? You're going to drop in paint that's just a bit thicker. Also, just don't worry if it's not perfect. If you want the person to appear like they're talking to the other person, you can raise the shoulder a little bit more, the far shoulder, and then you can have the head just slightly to this side. So it looks like they're walking together and they're having a little conversation, right? Give that a try. Now, if you want to suggest that the person has hands, like hands in their pockets or at their sides, you can just do a little dot of color. That's probably spreading a little too much. Maybe I should have waited, but it's really spreading. Ooh, that orange. You can mess around with it a little bit on the paper. And often if you're doing a darker bottom, so you want to make sure you don't make it too high or too low. You want it to be kind of about where the pants would start. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you could do a darker bottom. Quite often people wear blue jeans, especially in California. You can give them some blue jeans. So we're not talking yet about figures at the beach. We'll do that in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to switch brushes because I don't usually work with that big brush, so I'm having trouble. So I made this guy's legs a little too, I don't like them to be that square at the bottom. If you're going to go too short or too long on the people, I suggest you go too tall, right? Because it'll just look more stylized and like you're cool. You're a cool artist. Whereas if you make them too small or too short, they end up looking kind of like squatty. It looks too heavy, can be distracting. And I almost never draw feet because the foot coming towards you when you're looking at a picture is like this anyway, right? If you look at me in the little box, the foot coming towards you is like, this is your shoe, right? These are your shoes. So you're never going to have feet that stick out like that unless it's a ballerina. So don't draw feet at all. And I'm going to make that into a shadow. So if you want your figures to appear that they're not floating into space, a shadow is great. Just know where your light source is coming and then add a little shadow. There they go. Too good to be true. Could you guys hear that? Woo. Okay. So if my light source is coming from the upper left, it's going to throw a shadow to the low, down to the right. Okay. That way your people don't look like they're floating. We're adding shadows, you know, in any color, but you're going to want to add a shadow that makes sense for whatever the ground is that you've painted already. You want to, for the most part, put these distant figures in at the end of your painting. And so the shadows will probably be close to the end as well. Okay, you want to make them seem like the shirt is open a little bit, and you can have a little, bring a little more of that red color down. So it's very, very loose and free. This is a what not to do. It's easy to make these guys, isn't it? So this would be in a big painting. But you can practice making them smaller. We're going to make some groups of them in a little while. What you want to do is, and you can put them next to each other. They're having a little conversation. That's all I need. Two little people and their shadows. I like to connect the shadows sometimes. I think it's kind of cute. Sometimes you don't even have to do the head a different color. You just leave everything monochrome. So these are our carrot people. Again, remember, if you put the head, and you could do the head first. I generally do it afterwards because I tend to make the heads too big. But it's better to start small with the head because you can always make the heads a little bit bigger, but you really can't make them smaller easily. Like once you've put that darker mark down, it's kind of there, right? So start small with it because you can always make it a little bit bigger. Make the shadow go this way today. So why don't you practice adding some arms to it now? Get your little carrots. And if you've got a nice brush like this, you can really use the whole brush. So before I was using the tip of the brush, but now that you're kind of confident with it, right, getting more confidence, you can really use your whole brush and then just kind of pull that tail of the carrot down. Just pull it down. If you want it to be whimsical, you can curve it a little. People's legs don't really go like that, right? Makes them look like they're genies in a bottle. But it's kind of whimsical and fun. And if they're grounded in your landscape or in your cityscape or whatever, it will make sense. So if you want to make these two people walking together, and you can make them hold hands and you just have it joined together in the middle, and you just need a little suggestion of an arm. Don't have to worry about the hands being the right color or anything like that. So all of a sudden you have a couple. Okay, here's a tip. If you have a scene and you have one person in the scene, they can look kind of stalkerish, right? Just one person or a bunch of people alone in a scene. Like if I have groups of two in here, but if it was just a whole bunch of people standing around, it's going to really create a specific mood. And maybe that's a good mood for your painting. Maybe you want it to look solitary, like people are spaced out or something, but generally people don't do that. People congregate. And so maybe you'll have a solo person walking, but then you might have a couple and maybe they're holding hands, maybe they're not, but they're walking near each other, right? So if you want the scene to look more solitary, you want it to look lonely, for example, like a street at twilight, maybe there aren't a lot of people walking at night, then go ahead and put a solo person. But if you want it to look more like a happy scene, a busy scene, then you're going to want groups. So you can have some solos, but you definitely want some couples. How are you guys doing on your carrots? Karen's laughing.
Yes, I am.
Good.
They're coming.
Did you, oh, I thought you said something else.
No, no.
Hold them up. Let's see. See how everybody's doing since we're on video. Can you guys hold yours up? Oh, those are great. Wonderful. Yeah, those are really good. I like the pink.
Well, how thick is the paint when you're putting it down? Is it?
That's going to depend
or
on your painting. Yeah. But I would say it depends like where they are in the painting and the whole mood of the painting. So, and also depends what your background color is, right? So if you want them to appear like really faint in the distance and kind of washed out, then you're going to want it to be like a tea-like color. Oops, I thought I was sharing my screen. So if you want them to really like fade into the distance, then you're going to want them in tea. Okay. And in fact, if you're doing groups, you can do groups and they look like where you have the one that's in front is a little bit darker. And then you can even go darker as you come forward, right? Because each, they're kind of like layers, right? So each, as it fades, it'll look further in the distance. You can also make them smaller as they get into the distance. Just, there's no, what do you call it? There's no provenance for these guys, but you get the idea. So it depends on how much you want them to stand out. So if you don't really want them to stand out and your background is light, you can really go quite faded, almost like you would do. I always use the reference of like purple mountains in the background, right? When you see like layers of mountains or you see trees in the background, they're really quite soft. They're often painted kind of in this, very thin purpley color, because that's what we call atmospheric perspective. You don't see detail at a distance. So not only can you sort of simplify the shapes, you can also fade out the colors. However, if you have a dark background, or if they're a little bit closer, or the people are more prominent, and I'll show you some examples, then you might want to go darker or thicker with your paint. Does that make sense? Okay. I'll show some more examples and that'll get more obvious. But if you have a specific instance you're thinking of, Karen, then we could talk about that. You just hold your space bar down because I think you're on mute still.
My phone was ringing, so
Oh, that's okay.
somebody got it.
Did you have a specific painting that or instance, a scenario you were thinking of?
I wanted to put figures in a scene of Cannon Beach.
Oh, the beach scene you were telling me about earlier. Okay.
And I'm there's a whole lot of things about it. The original picture was taken as the sun was going down, so everything was quite dark, and I'm not sure that's a.
Not sure that's how you want to paint it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So it's not so straightforward, because it really does depend. How dark to make them is going to depend on the rest of the painting, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
I decided I would wait till I got that done and then.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And we'll practice different examples, but you can practice going really light with them too and fading them out. Like if it's a really bright sunny day and they're all the way in the distance, far in the distance, you're going to want them to be smaller, but also faded out. If they're somewhere in the middle distance, maybe you'll want them sort of like with more of a milky consistency. If they're against a dark background, they have to be either dark or you have to paint them in the negative, which we'll do in a little bit. So it really does depend on the whole painting. It depends on the mood of your painting. Yeah, there's a lot to it, but
Yeah.
it'll make more sense as we go. Okay, so those are some carrots. Let's talk about the diamond shapes. So I think I probably have to switch. So our diamond shapes kind of start the same way. So you can start them with the carrot and then we just sort of fill them out. So, whoops, I'm going to turn it this way actually. So you're going to start it with remember the shoulder. You want a strong shoulder. And then you can go down to a carrot. And then what you want to do is just sort of fill the shape out a little bit. Still got legs, so it's not a complete diamond. This is a little fatter. It's a little fatter. And this guy's kind of hunched over. His hands are in his pockets. It looks a little short, so I'm going to lengthen those legs just a tad. So usually I do these, like I said, when it's cooler weather, like I want to have them be a little bit bulkier for whatever reason. Bulk them out a little. So go ahead and practice. Remember, you start with the strong shoulder. You can flesh out the diamond first if you're comfortable, or you can do it after the fact. Doesn't matter. Whatever you're comfortable with. So quite often this shape is useful when someone's got their hands in their pockets, right? Or maybe they're looking down at their phone. People do this, do. See, this guy you could very easily imagine, he has his phone right here. He's looking at it. Okay, making that dot in the middle doesn't make sense for the picture, but I just wanted to show you. You can kind of imagine that, right? Somebody in the park on a colder day, a windier day, people be hunched over. In the city, people tend to hunch over. When they're on vacation, relax. They tend to stand up straight so you can have their head showing a little bit more. Okay. So diamonds are basically just a riff on the carrot. Show you how to make a group of people with diamonds in a second. Sometimes it's easier to make a group just with a big fat shape, and it's kind of fun. So there we go. Okay, don't forget your shadows. You know, sometimes there's no shadow if you're doing it, it's noon or it's a very small shadow, but a lot of the time there's a shadow. So you just want to make sure you get that in the picture. And the shadow doesn't have to be super specific to the shape. It just has to be the hint of a shadow. Just so they don't seem like they're floating. I also said that you can use this shape to have it seem like somebody has their hands in their pockets. So you can also have a little bit of negative space in the diamond. So I'm going to do one now. I'm going to try to do one now where I leave a bit of negative space. Just like a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you try to do a portrait of a person at this size, it's like a lot more likely that you'll be unsuccessful than you'll be successful. I feel like that head is in the wrong place. So I'm going to put it here. There we go. By the way, you can add scarves and canes and all sorts of things. We'll do some real people soon, but you can add things for fun. You can add a briefcase or a bunch of bags that the person's carrying. Very stylized, but anybody looking at that says, oh, that is a scarf and a cane, not like somebody's got a squiggle and a stick. It's just, you can also make hats, kind of stylize some hats. Hats are nice in England. They still wear hats in Europe. Here, people wear ball caps, you know, which don't really show up very easily on the head. They don't look great in a picture. But if you're at a ball game, if you're trying to depict a game, you might want to have a hat in there. Just something simple like that is fine, right? Just try to go delicate with it. Use like the very tip of your brush rather than, and just try to make a little mark versus trying to draw a whole hat on the head. That looks like a bird on his head. Okay. Hello. Because men do wear ball caps here, especially. So that's the diamond. Anybody having trouble with these, or do you find them maybe easier than the other one? See how I've kept the diamonds kind of high, because where your arms hit are usually, at least for me, slightly above my waist, right? Slightly above. So doesn't have to be perfect, but if you are going to make arms, you don't want them to be too long. Our arms generally hit mid-thigh, so kind of keep that in mind. Most people don't walk around with their arms just at their sides like this. Usually they're swinging, in which case they're going to not be straight down. They'll be slightly at angles, or one might be in front of the other. For example, I'll put some arms on this person. So one arm might be sort of longer than the other. That doesn't look good because it's so after the fact, but let's see. Yeah, I think his shoulder was too long to start with. There we go. We'll do sort of that. So you don't want it to be too much shorter than mid-thigh or too much longer than that. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be exact. That's the nice thing about it. But the more you do it, or the closer to the front of the painting it is, the closer to the foreground, the more you will want it to look more realistic. And I think the further it is in the distance, the less you have to worry about those little details. You guys on board with these shapes? Or are you like, oh, I don't know about those?
We're just working away here.
Working away. My watercolor hero, Eileen McCullough. So she uses her square brushes, and she makes her people with flat heads. Did you guys notice that in her pictures? Her people look like this. That's what her people look like. All of them. They're even flatter than that. She just goes like that. Goes like that and makes a head.
Wow.
And the bodies are all squares. And their legs are square too. They're tapered and square, I think, like mine. But she does these flat heads. They're hilarious. But it's a person and it's her own thing, right? It's her thing. It's her symbol of a person. Like her own peculiar style. I have some favorite watercolor artists, and like Mark Tara Holmes and Alvaro. His name is Alvaro Castaneda. And you guys might know Tim Wilmot. Tim Wilmot does a lot of like marina, dockside sort of paintings. And so he's always got people inhabiting them. And he quite often uses the red or orange construct to the skin tone, because his paintings are quite sunny. And so, yeah, you'll start noticing now watercolor artists who put people into their paintings and sort of how they do it. Okay, so I think I've run out of usage on that paper. So take another one. I was fooling around with these little guys right before class started, because I had some green paint in my palette and I didn't know what color it was. I didn't recognize it. And then I remembered, I think I mixed it with white or something. So one of them looks like she's wearing a mini skirt, and she kind of looks like a model, she's very elegant. And then it looks like she's got this escort or companion with her. So without even really thinking about it too much. You just make these shapes, and sometimes they kind of take on a life of their own. Okay, so let's talk about the perfume bottle shape. So the perfume bottle shape is great for sitting figures. So you basically just want this kind of a shape. It can also be just a nice stylized shape if you like that stylization. But I find this shape works. Yeah, it's kind of a funny shape, right? It's like a little fat guy. But it works for sitting figures. It works for people who are sitting. So let's say you've got a bench and you need to show someone sitting down. You don't need to show their whole body, right? You're just going to show like half of their body, the upper half. They might also be like sitting on a beach blanket. So you might have some people on a beach blanket or looking out a wall over a bridge or something like that. I'll just draw a little umbrella here. So Karen, that's all you need sometimes.
Yeah.
And again, the color that you use, it doesn't have to be like the actual colors those people are wearing, like by no means. You don't have to be literal, right? So it could be, if they're in full shadow, you could just be doing a violet. A violet is a great, construct that watercolor artists use for shadow. So maybe that's all it is. Maybe they're just glowing in purple,
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, if they're at the beach sitting, getting a little ahead of myself, but you can use somewhat of a skin tone for the whole thing, since a lot of the time at the beach, people aren't wearing their clothes, right? So you could just make like a peachy color. So I'm just doing my perfume bottles now. We're sitting on the beach, and then maybe just a little bit on the bottom, right? So people without shirts at the beach, or if you want to do legs. So I generally start, so now I'm just going to do a carrot again. I generally start with the peachy color. And then when it's dried a bit, because I don't want it to run too much, but when it's dried a bit, I can drop in like a swimsuit, or maybe it's a bikini, whatever. That's still too wet, but you can drop in a bit of clothes. You can leave the arms bare, the legs bare, so you can have a little bit more skin tone showing through. That was too wet, so I didn't really let it dry. So yeah, I don't use the perfume bottle construct as much, but it is useful. And it's kind of a cute little, I think architects use this. Because when architects do renderings of buildings or parks or whatever, they put people in to show scale and also to show habitation. So I worked, in the furniture industry for a while, and I've seen a lot of architectural renderings, and they want the person they're doing the rendering for, the customer, the client, to feel like that could be an inhabited space. That could be their building that they're going to sign off on, or their park, or whatever it is. So they put, stylized trees and stylized people and stuff in. Usually they're all computer generated, but there's some folks who still do this stuff by hand, and they put little people in. And I've seen this kind of shape used for people, which I think is cute. Okay, so we've got 3 different ways of stylizing people. You guys feel pretty comfortable with making all 3 of them at this point? Questions? I mean, we're gonna look at some photos and we're gonna draw actual people now. So now that you have sort of a basic guideline or construct for drawing people, now the thing is that then how do you get that to look like the kind of person that would be in that space doing that activity, right? So the best way to do that is to look at pictures of people, or sit in the park, sit on the beach, and just capture people like this, doing this, but trying to get those little nuances of their gesture and their clothing and that kind of thing, trying to capture those. So since we can't all go outside and do it, we'll do it with some photos. So let me grab some. But before we do that, do you guys have any questions about making these?
Well, the perfume bottle is a little harder, I think, than the carrot or the diamond.
Yeah, it's almost just like a little half a pill. you know? It's like, doesn't have to have those funny legs, but like if you want someone who's sitting down, you want to have a bit of a, just the top of their body, right? So
Okay.
it can almost be like a pill with a head on it.
That's a good example.
Yeah, these little guys. But they are a little bit harder.
I like those.
Thank you. We'll practice them. So, okay. So let me call this up. So remember how I said men are about 8 heads high? Women are a little shorter, 7 to 7.5. So if you're drawing a man and a woman together, unless, I mean, obviously there are some men that are shorter and other women that are taller, but if you're just doing general couples, a lot of the time a good way to suggest a male female couple is to have one be a little slimmer and shorter, and that could be your female. The male one could be a little taller and maybe his shoulders are a bit broader. So when you look at this picture here, to me, this one suggests a male on the left. The middle one could be anything. And the female sort of, I mean, that looks like a female to me.
Yeah.
She also looks like maybe she's wearing a dress, you know, perhaps. So I think that the best way to, that's just another construct to think of. Also, children, if you're doing children, which we'll draw some of, they have bigger heads in proportion to their bodies, and their bodies might only be about 4 or 5 heads high, depending on how old they are. Okay. I have a picture here of 2 men walking together. See how those shoulders are incorrect? So I wanted to share that. That just looks weird, right? You want the shoulders to go down. Okay. Oh, and I said I was going to show everyone how to make a group of people. Let's do that. Let's do that, and then we'll do some actual people. Here we go. So grab a new piece of paper or flip your paper over. I think my papers are all still very wet, so I'll grab a new one. So what I do is I just make a shape to start with. It's sort of like reminiscent of a, oh, this is the back of the paper. I've got the wrong side of the paper here. Anyway, it's sort of reminiscent of a diamond, but I can't work with that, sorry. That was the wrong side of the paper and it was just slippery. So let's try again. Okay, so you just want a shape, and the shape can be kind of pushed out at the side, but it can be a random shape because we're gonna fiddle with it. So you want a bit of a diamond on either side. And then what you're gonna do is just drag some legs down. So let's say this is 3 people together. Just easier sometimes than trying to draw 3 separate people. So you can draw just sort of like 3 sets of legs and then put your heads in there. And then as it dries a little bit, you can start differentiating it. So maybe you've got some hands in the mix. And you can change the color. So if you want, like the one in the middle is the one that's walking in front, you can kind of bust out a different color and put that here. And the colors will bleed into each other. So that crowd just sort of becomes one and mingles, and it's not like too jarring on the eye, you know. It's just going to be in the distance. You got a crowd, you can just do that. Just a pretty easy way to draw a group of people. I'm going to do it again and do it smaller. Maybe this guy has a hat on. So this is obviously a pretty friendly group, right? If you have a little more space, well, they still seem pretty friendly. There's a little bit more space over here in their shoulders, so not as friendly. Maybe they're crowded together online, but these people are definitely close with each other. And again, you can kind of choose to differentiate one from another if you like. So if you're doing crowds of people, this is a great quick way to do it, right? You just start sort of a bit of a blob of a shape. Give them some shoulders and then kind of bring some legs down. This is 2 people. So that's a quick way to do a group. This guy can be kind of jaunty. Give him a little scarf. And then don't forget your shadow. Just pull a little color out. Okay. Once it starts to lose its sheen, you could really crisp up the shapes a little bit more if you wanted to. I just put way too much in here, so it's gonna take a while to dry. And change the color of the legs on one of them if you want. There you go. It's kind of fun, right? But now comes the hard part, because now we're going to actually draw real people. So we're going to try to capture some different gestures. Oh, I wanted to show you. This is one of my favorite sketchers, Suhita Sketcher. And this isn't watercolor. This is like a crayon, Caran d'Ache, I think, with the ink. But this is a great example of scale, right? You see that little person sitting at the table. I think it's probably too small compared to the size of this street sign. The street sign's really tall, but it does really kind of give you the idea of sort of these big old grand buildings and then just this one little person sitting and having a coffee or something at a table. It's a great little urban sketch. And it just makes you feel like you're there when you just put a little person in the picture, right? Makes you feel like it could be you sitting at that little, like it looks to me like it's Belgium and I want to go there and have an ale. So anyway, we'll come back to this one, but here's another idea where you really get an idea of scale. So you can see that that family or those children or whatever are out there in the ocean. And it makes you feel like it's not, even though it's quite wild, it's not the middle of nowhere. You know, you get a sense of how deep the water is, you know, and that kind of thing. So we'll come back to that. Okay. So here I thought maybe we could just try to capture. Here's another great, like, I guess, an instance of where you would want to put people into a picture. The guy in the foreground, he's a little bit more, and there's a little more of a people story in this picture, right? But if he weren't there, just having like one little surfer in your picture can be quite nice. But here's a lone figure. I thought we could try to put this figure, just try to draw this figure ourselves. Okay. So I'm going to keep the picture up there. And why don't we give it a go? and then we can share it with each other. So this guy's kind of skinny, right? Slim, he's just wearing a wetsuit, not even real clothes. So I'm going to use the carrot. This one's a little hard, right? Because he's got his arms akimbo. But see what you can do with that. And you can either choose to include the surfboard or not. And then if you want a little extra challenge, see if you can get that surfer back there. That's just a gesture though. I don't think you could use a carrot on that. Let's see what you could do with that. So it helps to have like a pointed tip to your brush when you've got these little figures, or if you have any details that you're going to be adding in. I like this little surfer because his body's really twisted and torqued, and it's really interesting, I think. So I'm going to hold mine up. The first one I didn't like so much, so I did it again. I did the little ones twice too. More successful. I think I started with the head, so less successful than I started with the body. So again, I wasn't really trying to capture a portrait, just a little surfer figure to put in my picture. Maybe this one, he looks like he might be missing a hand carrying this surfboard. So I'm just going to extend his shoulder out a little bit so it makes more sense, and can even add like a little blob, like it might be his hand underneath. Now it seems to make a little more sense to me. How did you guys do with this? It wasn't the easy one. It wasn't easy. Let's see. Nice
Mine's
job,
really
Karen.
dull.
That's really good. Yeah, thank you. Good one. Bonnie, let's see yours. Oh, hold it higher.
Oh, nice.
Excellent. Yeah, nice, Bonnie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You still going, Ginny?
Oh, I got too literal.
Oh, okay. All right, we're gonna have more. Don't worry, we're gonna do a few more.
That
So
was a good picture.
yeah, it's a tough one, but we'll do another one. Let's see. Okay. So here's one from the side.
Okay.
Try this one. Hey, Joelle. So from the side, a lot of the time what you're going to do is just like even modify that carrot even more. You just want sort of the belly to stick out a little bit of a belly going out, little silhouette. So I'll share mine with you and then I'll let you get back to it. So that's it. It's just a little dude. There's his shadow, right? So it's like a half a carrot. Okay, let's go back to that. Don't need to worry too much about his butt. Don't need to worry too much about, his hands in his pocket. Like, you don't have to do that. It's just a silhouette of a person. So see if you can get a little bit of a different shape on his head since it's from the side. Add a little bit of color into his face. So you're just suggesting a little side view. Because you don't always have people coming straight on, right? Sometimes they're surfing, sometimes they're just standing looking out at something. Let me share that again. And this is a nice way to put a mood into a landscape, right? Or in this case, a seascape. And like you have a little vignette now. Do you guys want to share yours? You guys still working on this guy?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want it up again?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. By the way, you can do the head just a different color from the start. You don't have to add it in after the fact. You could do the body, like in this case, I did in navy. And then you can add the head in a brown or in a whatever contrast you would like. Oop, I made the front of him too big. Gotta wipe that one off and start again. All right, we're not doing portraits, remember, so let's see. How'd you guys do? I wiped this one away, I didn't like it. Bonnie, looking good. Let me spotlight you guys. I'm gonna spotlight you all.
Okay, Karen's not ready.
That's okay, Karen. Nice job, Bonnie. Ginny, those are great.
Good.
Really good. I like your surfer. Yeah, those are very nice, Ginny. It looks like you've got a row of people in line, and that's nice. I know you're just practicing, but I like that. So a little bit about perspective. So when you have a horizon line and you have a bunch of people, their heads are all going to be at the horizon line. Okay. Doesn't matter like how tall they are. They're going to all be approximate. So one might be taller than the other, but they're going to be approximately at the horizon line, the head, when you put people into the distance. Okay. So if they're in a row, then you're going to have them, obviously some will be coming forward, and they'll get smaller as they get further away. But when they're all standing around sort of in the same, this gives you that perspective, but they're in the same place. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have like one above the horizon and one below the horizon, like that can look really weird and create a really odd, distorted sense of proportion. So the head will be at about wherever your horizon line is, even if you can't see it. Hi, Deb. Welcome, welcome. So,
My daughter-in-law decided she'll bring my grandson home from karate, but I'll still have to take a jot out when he comes home. So,
oh, that's okay. So welcome. Yeah, thanks for coming in. We've been doing sort of the beginning has been about making sort of stylized people with carrot shapes and then diamond shapes. So this is for when they're wearing like a little bit more clothes. And we are doing, it's almost like a stamp with our brush. So I'll show you a little bit. If someone else had a camera, I would have them volunteer because I think everybody's getting pretty good at it. But the idea is that we're doing stylized people or sort of symbols of people rather than trying to do portraits of people. So just to get you caught up, when you do a carrot, we start with the body. And you'll watch the video. You can watch a video and get caught up.
yeah, okay.
And then we want to like elongate it to a carrot, even if it's kind of a funny carrot. And only then we kind of add the head. And if the head's too small, you can always make it bigger. So always start small. It's easier to go bigger than it is to go smaller. So we started off practicing a bunch of these stylized people. And now we're trying to look at photos and actually capture the gesture of the figure in the photo.
Okay.
Okay. So I need new water because my water is black already. So yeah, do you guys need to change your water too? Okay, be right back.
Oh, start at 6. It started at 7 to 8:30.
Oh, okay. Oh, you thought you were just a few minutes late. That's okay. You can watch it on video.
Yeah, thank you. Oh gosh, I'm just so out of
no
it.
problem.
He started at 6:15, so I would have had to leave. Yeah. Okay.
No worries, no worries. So, yeah, it's really fun. You can totally get caught up on video. We were just doing a little bit of practice with different shapes and drawing in groups and, you know, trying to add some function, sometimes like a cane or a scarf, you know, we'll do some more like that. We talked about doing, you know, pairs in if you want to have a more of a lively or friendly sort of scene, then you want pairs or groups of people. Groups is like can really be a crowd and can be a lot more lively. Whereas when you just put one figure into a landscape, it really creates like a very lonely or solitary mood. It doesn't have to be lonely, but you know, a very solo sort of a mood. And if you have groups of people walking alone and they're all solo people walking alone, it can look a little stalkerish. So sometimes you want to consider, should I add in some pairs? You know, they don't have to be holding hands or anything, but you know, should I be making them look less stalkerish, or you know, or maybe they don't look stalkerish, maybe they just look chill. Maybe, but you know, it's good to consider it, I think. Okay, so let's do some more pictures. So here's a couple. So why don't we go ahead and try to capture this one? And I'll hold mine up in the little square. So for Deb or anyone else who wants to see it kind of as I go. So I'm going to use lighter colors for this one because I've been using these really dark colors and you don't have to. So remember, we start with the shoulders. By the way, you can feel free to add the baby or not. That's up to you. Well, we start with the shoulders and then we bring the legs down, and we want the legs to be, you know, quite long. You don't want stumpy people. This case, the couple are about the same height, interestingly enough. But a lot of the time it does help to make them male a little taller. It's just a construct. It doesn't have to be that way, but it can read better if you're just have a bunch of stylized people. Children can be hard because their heads are bigger. But it's kind of a cute little vignette, right? So I'll hold mine up if you guys are curious how my things are going so far. I want it to be pretty clear that this is the back of their body, the back of their heads. So for me, the easiest way to do that is to just add a bit of a suggestion of hair while things are still wet. I don't often put hair in there, but just adding a bit of it to the back, and you get a sense that it's because it's darker, that's the person from behind. Oh, it ran down. That's okay. I'm painting quite big again, but we'll do some where we get real small. Because sometimes all you need are like a little mark, and then you're done. It's a person. Mark. It's another figure. Mark. You know, you just like sort of little flicks of your brush. And if you wanted to like add more flesh tone into where the arms are, then it's obvious like we're on the beach or we're somewhere warm because there's a lot of skin showing, you know. And you can almost drop in just an orange or a peachy color right over whatever color you used. The best time to do that as well, it's still wet, but the sheen is coming off. I had a hard time with her hair. It didn't really work out. Try that again. There we go. That's a little better. So I'll show you guys kind of where I got to. It's dripping, of course. She's not really that tall. If I saw that in a painting, I would go, oh, that's a couple and their child, and that's all you need. There's no real detail in there. How did you guys do, or do you want to see it again?
Let's see yours again.
Oh, okay. There we go. That one's mine.
So the first shape on the then the woman is more of a carrot and the guy is more of a diamond.
You know, I looked at his body and I made it a little bit more like a rectangle, to be honest.
Okay.
Because his legs were apart, and I thought it'd be nice to kind of keep them apart.
Yeah.
So it's hard to do the legs apart when they're a total carrot. So you kind of have to stop it at a certain point. Yeah, good call. It still starts like a carrot, but then I sort of stop it. So I started it like a carrot and then I kind of stopped it right about there. And then I added legs coming down. Okay. So you guys want to look at the picture again? Or are you good?
Oh, good.
Anybody want to share? Anyone want to hold theirs up? Nice, Bon. Oh, that's great. That's so cute. Thank you for sharing. You guys still going? Karen? Let's see. Hold closer to your face. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's really good, Karen.
Dramatic, but
That's okay. You don't need more than that. Let's see, Deb. Deb's just catching up. Let's see if she's raced ahead of the rest of us. Yes, very nice. Nice.
I got her way too broad-shouldered.
Yeah, that's okay. So the way to balance that out would obviously be one of the things we talked about was that a lot of the time when you're beginning this, that you make the bodies too squat. So you want to remember like that they should be elongated.
Elongated, yeah.
It's better to have a longer body than a shorter body because if you make it longer, you'll just look like you're doing this cool artistic stylized thing.
Okay.
Right? So
Yep.
men are about 8 heads high, and then and about half of the body is torso, and the other half is legs.
Oh, I got my dog. I got my son's grandson.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. So let's do another one. Okay.
Oh,
So
good
there's
grief.
a lot to capture here.
oh,
Yeah. Don't worry about the scene. Don't worry about the scenery, I should say. Just try to capture, what time is it? Got about, let's take like 5 full minutes and try to capture as many of these figures as you can. And yeah, see what you can do with it. Go. Ready, set, go. So when you get to those smaller ones, you have a choice. You can switch to a smaller brush, or you can just use the tip of your brush just to suggest things. That's a choice. It's up to you. Nice too, because you have a lot of flesh here, a lot of skin tones, a lot of people from the side. Some of the poses are kind of awkward because people on the beach walk awkwardly, right? Remember to try to start with shoulders, not with heads. With little kids, it's okay to make their bellies pretty big. It's kind of cute when you do. Got some people bending over. Very interesting. See that couple holding hands? That's nice
Where?
too. About 10 o'clock.
Oh.
She's in a bikini. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Got some people you can barely see them. They're just almost their heads in the ocean. But you want to draw their torso, use a little perfume bottle to sort of draw a torso rather than just their head, because it's maybe makes more sense looking at it. Not everyone at the beach goes topless, or I mean, not everybody goes in their swimsuits, I should say. Like a lot of the time people do actually wear clothes at the beach. So it's nice to have a combination of where you have, you can put a teeny tiny bit of color in there, occasionally. Actually, those are 3 people holding hands. That's interesting. I just realized that. All 3 of those people. Okay, so we got another minute. You guys getting a lot of people?
Trying.
Awesome. You find after a while, like you're just stylizing people, you know, like they're just gonna look like people at the end of the day. Your brain fills in the gaps and you're kind of combining maybe a bit of this person and a bit of that person. I'm gonna hold mine up and show you where I got to. I didn't do any shadows. Here we go. I'll stop.
Oh my, you got a lot.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah. Maybe it's easier to do it this way. Let's see. I got this couple walking here. This little child came out a little big, too big. And just little groups, just little dots, little teeny dots with heads. I mean, even without the scene, there's still people, right?
mhm.
And the colors, let them run a little bit. Then you don't even have to try to make it perfect. Although this lady, she ran a little too much and she looks like she's got some weird evening dress on. So maybe I would try to lift that up a little bit. I'm just impatient today. So how did you guys make out?
Oh, gosh.
Did you have any that you found were like, I know there's more that some that are more successful than others. Like I like this little group here and I like all these little ones here. And I like that one that looks like he's looking down at something on the ground. Did you guys have any you kind of felt were more successful than others?
Yeah.
Let's
Mm.
see, Bonnie. Here.
My first group of people on this side, I really liked.
Hold it a little bit higher. Oh, I really like them all.
I do too.
Thank you.
They're great. Those little teeny marks of blue in the background are wonderful.
I'm glad you said
Little-
that because I was looking at them and thought that was the worst part of the whole.
No, they're just like little, it's like if you were going to put pigeons into a park, you know, you're not going to take the time to try to draw the individual feathers and give each pigeon personality, you know, you just
Yeah.
want a couple marks. And that's really all it is sometimes. Okay, so anyone else want to share or would you guys like to see the picture again? I hate it when I like pull it away in the middle and no. Shall we move on? There's some head shaking going on. I'm not sure what to do. You guys want another minute or should I move on? Ginny, come on, tell us.
Well, I'm just laughing because they don't look like people.
Can we see them? Maybe we can help.
And the ladies are gonna feel bad because they're off their diets.
Oh, those are excellent.
Those are,
It's
See?
beautiful, Jenny.
Well,
Oh my
this woman, I made
goodness.
her bigger than her husband.
So what? Nobody knows that. I mean, unless you're painting your daughter, he'll get mad at you or something, but
You know, I think I'm gonna change her into another guy holding the baby.
there you go. It's a diverse
It's-
world. Ginny, those are great. Those are wonderful.
They do have a life of their own. It's true. You can see stuff once you get it down on the paper.
Yeah, and the reason why we practice these over and over again isn't just because it's fun, But before you go ahead and put those figures into your landscape, you can practice them. You want to make sure that you can get that gesture right. So you're going to practice it on another piece of paper. And then when you feel comfortable with that brush stroke, when you get the right stroke, you know, you press it down the right way, you lift it up the right way, you've got the right angle. That's when you know that's the gesture you need. And then you add that into your landscape, cityscape, seascape, whatever it is. But the more you do it, the more you won't really need to practice too much, you know. Sometimes it's nice to do it. And you can even do it on tracing paper. And then you can lay that tracing paper over your dry landscape and make sure that the scale is right. Make sure it looks right to you. You know, especially if you're not so comfortable eyeballing it. But a lot of the time, those final marks, you really want to get it right. But you know, it would be awful if you did like successful painting and then you went to add the figure and you made it too big, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Or you put it maybe even in the wrong place, right? And you ended up, it's not at the horizon line. It looks like it's levitating or something like that. So that's why we practice. Let's do a few more.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, nice.
A little blurry scene. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna just take a minute. We got a couple seated people, so you can use your little perfume bottles for those. Seated and to the side. Very interesting. And some guy on a bicycle. So sometimes it's nice to have little, I don't know what you call them, signs of habitation, park benches, signs, street lamps, things like that. So learning how to shorthand those is almost as important as learning how to put figures into a landscape, because those little shorthands will help with the signs of habitation even when you don't want to have a person in your scene. So for example, I've got some here. It's a little bicycle, little park bench, a very big stop sign, a little tiny lifeguard tower. You know, those little signs of habitation, and that, by the way, is terrible. So I'll do better next time. But those are just as important or just as good as people sometimes. So just wanted to share that. We'll go back to this picture now. Same with things like umbrellas on the beach, or a little pail or a little beach blanket or something. Now, what do you do about a white shirt? White shirts can be kind of hard. So we're going to talk about how to paint those in the negative in a little bit. Remember to start with the shoulders, not with the head. I know I keep saying that, but a lot of the time when I do it, I want to start with the head because of where the location of it is, you know. But I remind myself, well, that's not the best place to start.
Yeah.
And remember, even though the forms get a little bit, more personalized, let's call it, you still try to stick with your basic shapes like perfume bottle, carrot, and diamond. And then just as jumping off points, you can just modify the shape, just make it up slightly more to fit the gesture. But I think just keeping those is just a reminder that we're just drawing symbols of people. Have you guys figured out yet how to draw legs that are running?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to help you with that in a second. So when you're drawing a leg that's running, I think you just want to kind of draw them slightly akimbo. So you've got like one leg that's a little shorter than the other. And then sometimes one leg is curved in to the other. And that's how you look like you're running or striding, because when you're striding, right, your legs they're scissoring outwards, right? So one is going to appear to be longer, and that's the one that's in front. And then the one that appears to be shorter is the one that's lagging behind. I put some little trees in the scene too. Now I'm going to show you how I would put in a lamppost, but I have to stop and look at it again really quick first because I forgot where it is in the scene. Oh, there it is. So I think I'm going to put it on the other side. So the lamppost, what you can do is you can just have the base, and then you just use the flat side of a brush to kind of stamp up. And then you can do whatever what's ever going on top of the lamppost. So rather than try to draw a straight line, I just use the flat of the brush to stamp, right? This isn't the best brush to stamp with. The liner brush works better, but that's the idea. Sorry about all the toggling. And whatever this looks like, I don't really know. We'll just pretend it looks like that. And then we've got some shadows here. The shadow will actually help with the bicycle because it looks more like a bicycle in the shadow than it does from behind. So I drew a little bit of the scene, so I'm going to stop it just to show you guys how you could have it as an urban sketch. Well, let's say you're out with Eat, Paint, Live with me, and we're somewhere fabulous, and you want to capture some people, but you want to put some provenance into it. So this looks like exactly what it is, a little loose sketch of a day at the park, right? Someone on a bicycle, somebody's walking along, some people are sitting on the benches, and that's enough to kind of record the day. But if this were a more fully finished painting, certainly you would have more likely done the background first and then left some lighter zones where you could stamp in a couple people, right? How did you guys do with this one?
It's hard.
Anybody brave? Yeah. Yeah. It's just about practice. Yep. So you're brave enough to share? Let's see. Oh, that's great. Those are good. Yeah, the bicycle's hard, isn't it?
It's hard either way.
The bicycle is always like a little slimmer than you think it's going to be. Let's see
Yeah.
yours, Deb. I saw you start to hold it up. Oh, excellent, Deb.
Good job.
Yep, really good. Nice. Work on making them a little longer, a little taller. But,
Okay.
but you've got the idea. You have the idea. That's just my tip that you didn't ask for. Oh, those are great.
No,
Oh,
I want it. I want it.
Ginny, that's wonderful.
Yeah, he's a little bit overweight falling over the bicycle.
That's why he's at the park. Yeah. But it's clear what he's doing, right?
Sort of.
So you had two people, you thought you made their torsos too big.
Yeah.
So that's just something to think about next time is maybe make them a little bit more of maybe try the carrot instead of the diamond. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You can always tell after the fact.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And sometimes you just go, that's okay. No one's going to notice. Like I'll show you a couple. I mean, I'm not perfect and you guys know that. And I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I just want the idea, right? So I've got here where I put a little person at the helm of this sailboat. Here I put a couple people and their hair's blowing in the breeze. They're just sitting on the edge. Those are some perfume bottles, right?
Yeah.
They're just sitting on the edge. But they're not perfect, but I don't care. This guy doesn't even appear to have a head, But it's just the idea of having somebody on a boat. It's not a ghost boat, right?
Right.
The same with this one. Here's this little person enjoying themselves. Obviously, they're got some wind in their hair. And again, it's imperfect, but so is the rest of the picture, right? I have so many of these that I could share that they're not perfect, right? But they're little people and they're enough for just adding bits of habitation. Here's a little, I don't know, quartet in the park or something. I have so many of these. This is the one I wanted to show you that I forgot to. So here's some people at the beach. And you could see for the beach, I use more pastel-y colors because colors get faded out in bright light, don't they? So if you want to show like a nice sunny day, you want to pale out those colors. Yeah, they're not perfect. I mean, that one came out funny, so I gave him a weird hat, It just will add a bit of quirk to your picture anyway. Right? So don't worry too much about it not being perfect, really. And it gets easier over time. Oh, there's my little group in the waves.
Oh, that's nice.
They're just squiggles. I mean, what is that? What's that? I don't even know what that is, but provenance and with the other ones that came out all right, it's fine. Like, I don't have to throw it away. Okay, so we've got some choices because we have about 18 minutes left. So we've got some more surfers. We've got a crowd. By the way, and then we've got a lot of surfers. More beach. This one's good because it's overhead. So these are the kind of marks I make when I have a little crowd scene. And I recommend totally, if you're on vacation, you're anywhere with a plaza and there's a crowded plaza with people, just try to capture a few of them, or just look up like busy plaza, Google it, and like, or crowd in a plaza or something. Like, you're gonna get this kind of photo and you can just try to capture those marks. So you guys want, and I've got a, I don't know what that is. That's a street lamp. That's a suggestion of a building. That's a stumpy tree or a sign. But whatever it is, it kind of gives the idea that you've got a crowd. And you could see I have a couple darker figures in front of lighter figures. Cross some legs over. I don't know. That guy looks like he's ice skating. But all in all, it works out. So do you guys have a preference for which one you want to give a try to next? Like, do you like this one, or do you want to take a simpler one?
Maybe that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one here? Okay, let's go for this one. So these are very small figures with very little detail in them, right? They're nice and colorful though. Think about the scale of the building, and if you even want to sort of do that building with a few lines in it first. Think about scale, because that building is quite tall, right? So you're going to want your people to really reflect what that grandeur of that building is. And that's a very important use of people, especially in urban sketching. Somebody pushing a little baby stroller. That's an interesting little shape to try to make. You have a lot of people walking, so you definitely have like a lot of chance to get practice doing legs in motion. And then you've got people who are in groups, standing still, kind of being tourists. This one's harder than you think, because the people are all different sizes. Sometimes when you're doing people in the park, they have like big bags or they have balloons. Balloons are kind of fun. Not in this one, but I do see somebody with a little bag though. You guys need a couple more minutes?
Yep.
Okay. You guys have any shadows?
Not yet.
All right. Just thinking about them. The shadow, by the way, you can make a little bit lighter in color than the figure. I forgot to mention that. Your shadow doesn't have to be like the same thickness. So you can add water to it. And then it's not like as prominent, but it's still there. You still have some shadow. I'm gonna hold mine up in case anybody's done, but I don't think you're done. I see everybody's heads down.
And can you switch yours to when you're ready, to where we can just see yours?
I'm ready. I just could see everybody's heads down, but I can always toggle back.
Yeah.
Oop.
Nice.
Oh my goodness.
So I spent like just a minute getting in a few lines of a building and then just tacking in a few little people. That's my baby carriage. So I did most of the people. I think there might have been a couple people that I didn't do, but they're just little squiggles. That's all they are. They're not perfect, but if I'm drawing the building and I just want, you know, the idea that I was there or the feel of a busy plaza, then I feel like I got it. Obviously, I would usually take a few more minutes to do this and get it right if I could. But if I only had 2 minutes and then my group was like, come on, we're leaving, this might be all I can get. And I would rather do this than take photos any day. That's
Wow.
just me. I mean, I might also take a photo or use somebody else's photo and paint it later if I didn't have time, but sometimes this is all you have time for. So, but I would put, even if I made a fully finished painting, I would put the people in it probably in much the same way. I probably would just have time to really do more with values and stuff in a fully fleshed out painting. Trying to think if there's, oh, we didn't do a dog. I wanted to do a dog. Forgot that. And I was going to show you guys how to do one in the negative. So sometimes when you have a white dress or like a white t-shirt, so I'm going to stop the share just to show you guys, and then we can have a bit of share time. So if you have a white t-shirt, what you have to do is you have to go around it. You have to go around it in the negative. And I find it helpful actually to hold my brush upside down. And in this case, I will start with the head, and then I'll get the shoulders in there, and then I can turn the brush around and I'll get the body. So whatever the background is, I mean, you obviously can always mask it out too, right? But if you don't have masking fluid or you don't have time, you can get the background colors here. And then with the shirt, once it's dry, then you can add in, so it's not dry now, obviously, but you can add in like a collar or the arms, you know, and then you can add in trousers. You guys get the idea, right? So look, he's a little bit long and thin, this guy, but there you go. So that's how you can do a white shirt very easily, is you just do it in the negative. So I'll do it again. You just want to take your brush upside down and carve out the head. So by now you're pretty good at the head and the shoulders. Remember, it's not ET. You don't need a long neck. And then you can kind of get your body shape into place. And then you would work out your background, whatever your background is. You know, maybe it's a building or whatever it actually is. You get it in there. And then when it's drier, then you can add like some flesh tone. Maybe it's a crew neck shirt. Maybe it's a short sleeve shirt and you want to really show that. And unless they're wearing a dress, you know, you can add some trousers and you can darken those up. And that's how you do white clothing.
Oh,
Okay. So I meant to show you that. And then I was going to show you a little dog. So I do the little shapes. And then it's nice to sometimes just have a person walking a dog. Even if there isn't really a dog in the scene, you know, you can put one in there. So I tend to do a little body, head, and then you can kind of play with it a little bit. Little tail. Don't forget that they have shadows too. Kind of fun to add a little doggy to your scene sometimes. Friendlier, you know, a little bit friendlier. And of course, you could have a couple walking along and they're holding hands and they're walking their dog. That guy's much taller. Maybe I'll fix that. If you're Bonnie, you need 2 dogs. Draw a second dog over here. Okay. Yeah, there's the other dog. I don't really know if that's how the leashes would be. They'd probably be like that, but. So final thoughts or questions. I think my final thoughts is maybe I'll send out an email and I'll kind of share some artists that I like that are watercolor artists that put figures into their paintings, and you can check them out. Hazel Sloan, by the way, if you guys don't know Hazel Sloan, She is like the mistress, the master of figures. She's great. She also puts she does really good animal gesture drawings. Like, she's wonderful. But I would say final thoughts would be, call up pictures, call up crowd photos, look at other artists, call up a parade. Don't do concert because it's just a bunch of people crowded together. Look up piazzas and beaches and just try to sketch little carrots and shapes and try to add little gestures and details to it as you get more confident. Start small. Starting small forces you to leave out detail. It really does. And then, start with one color and add more color, more gestures, more details, but not too many. And also, don't use pencil or anything like that. Just commit to the shapes that you're making as you practice. And then if you're doing a work of art and you want to include it in that work, practice it first. Practice it for the gesture. Be aware of the brush, what you're doing with your brush as you use it, and be aware of the scale, and then use some tracing paper. If you want to make sure you get that scale right, you can overlay it. And then once you're confident with that, then you can actually go ahead and put those figures into your scene. So those would be, I guess, my final thoughts. Do you guys have any questions?
I do. What was the name of Hazel's? What was Hazel's last name?
Hazel Sloan. Sloan, I think. No E.
SLOAN.
I'll put it in an email. I'll send out a little email.
Okay.
Because you'll love her. She's great. There's a lot of artists that do it. Everyone does it differently. But she's very good. She's got some good videos, and I think she has some books too. She's like the top master at this stuff. But also Tim Wilmot is great. There's a lot of artists who do it really well. Yeah, and you just got to find someone you like and then try to emulate them, but put your own style twist on it. So I hope that you guys liked this workshop and that you found it helpful.
So fun, even though I came in.
You had an hour with us. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Fun. And I have some ideas now.
Good. I mean, obviously none of us can master something in 2 hours, but it gives you an idea kind of where to start. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Karen, do you feel like you could tackle the picture you were thinking about?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, good. Good. Okay. Well, if you guys have any ideas for future workshops you'd like, things that you want to tackle, share them with me. I just want to know what you guys would like to paint, and then I'll paint it with you, whether it's here or it's during a happy hour or whatever it is. Like, I try to make it happen,
And, one thing I've always struggled with is getting shadows right. Does that ever come up as maybe a topic for a
that would be a
class?
Great topic. Yeah, because you can go into like how to make good shadow colors. You can talk about cast shadows. You could also talk about the shadows that are part of the form. I mean, I think that's an amazing idea. Yeah. I'll definitely put that on the list. Thanks, Bonnie.
Sure.
A lot of people struggle with shadows. They just go to gray, and they get the wrong angle and things like that too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I will send out a link to this, and then you guys can rewatch it, and Deb, you can catch up on the beginning of it, and then I'll send out some.
I'm just so spaced out lately. I just thought
You
it was
got a lot
Thursday.
going on.
The time I thought was from 7 to 8:30. I don't know what I'm reading. I have no idea what I'm reading.
That's tomorrow's. That's tomorrow night's. So that's what got you confused. I'm sorry.
Oh, it might have.
Yeah. Oh, well, anyway, you can watch it again on the replay. So yeah, part of being live, doing it live is nice though, because then we can interact a bit.
Yes,
so
that is why I wanted to do live, because sometimes I have questions and I can't get input, like hold up my picture and get your input. So Yeah, so longer bodies.
Longer bodies. And send me, as you guys are learning and practicing and as you're trying it out in your actual paintings, send them to me because I'd love to see them.
And thank you for your input on my little crow.
Oh, I
So.
love it. Yep, I love your crow. So I'm going to
Yeah.
stop the record here.